it's this show's been going pretty quick because we're already on our last segment. Can you believe that?
Yeah,
And
yeah, it's been very, very
Time flies when
fast.
you're having fun.
yes. And for the last segment, we're still kind of working things out, sussing things out, and we were supposed to have an interstitial. We still don't have one, but what we do have is me making an ass of myself when I say that we're stepping in the right direction. Cindy, take it away.
Nice one. So this article comes from the news website The World, which I had no idea existed so far, and is dated from the 10th of November, which is a week ago. And it talks about a man's journey from Hindu nationalist to humanist. And when I read the article, the first thing that came into my mind was the movie American History X with Edward Norton. I don't know if you saw it. It's a relatively old movie from the 90s, I think. Um, and yeah, it's a great movie. So it's basically a man who was a very, very strong nationalist and was arrested just before almost committing a crime. And so, after meeting some people, he became humanist and left um, these bad ideas behind him. Um, so it's good to see this kind of stories coming from India because we've been talking about this on the show several times. India is leaning very, very strongly towards a nationalist Hindu theocracy, and a very, very nasty one because if you're not Hindu, then you're pretty much dead. Um, so I'm afraid stories like this are not representative of the general direction the country is taking. But hey, every step in the right direction is worth taking. Jason?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree with that. Now, as far as this goes, yes, he was thrown in jail due to a plan to take down a mosque. Now, the mosque was actually taken down by the rest of his group. So, unfortunately, the crime still did, in fact, happen, even though he was arrested. While he was in there, his hatred grew. And what kind of pushed him over the edge to go more towards secularism. Unfortunately, I have some concerns about that because it was due to a tragedy in his life, where his sister was tragically taken from him in a car accident, and we have seen where a situation like this, some tragedy, has caused people who've chosen to go towards atheism, chosen not to believe in a god, or have sussed out that there is no god, who have then walked themselves back because they realize, well, wait a minute, a tragedy is not a good enough reason. And unfortunately, I do have to agree with that. A tragedy is not necessarily a good enough reason to not believe in a god, because you can years later go, well, maybe there is a power that caused me to go into this direction. I do hope that he stays in a more humanist direction, even if he does go back to his religion. And so, yeah, ultimately, this is still a step in the right direction for him. And I hope that it is a step in the right direction for India, because as we talked about in another episode, India has historically been largely a secular nation, that they ruled the country based upon secular ideas, that their Hinduism did not dictate their actions. But we are seeing from leaders like Modi, where all of India is sacred land. And if you are going to build on our land from another religion, that's just an insult and a slap in the face. And it's that kind of thinking that tears people down. What are they going to do when they realize, oh, the Taj Mahal, a quote unquote wonder of the world and a beautiful mosque, is now the target of somebody's ire. It's just absolutely disturbing, and what could potentially happen. What have you got, August?
Well, I want to piggyback off of what you said just for a second and agree that if personal experience is what gets you to release the dogma and indoctrination and begin your journey to finding what is true, then that's fine. I don't think personal experience in and of itself is a good reason to believe, and therefore I don't think it's a good reason to disbelieve necessarily. If that's your starting point, then great, but I think some more investigation should be done with that. I do want to push back a little bit, Jason, on this is probably just me being picky, but I really don't feel like people choose to believe things. So, he might not have chosen to take this path, especially because the culture that he's in, even if he's maybe not surrounded by it as much anymore. I don't know if he said that or not, but I think he probably went through a phase where I think I wrote a note that he went through kind of an angry atheist phase. So it, a lot of the times you want to believe more than anything and you can't because there's not evidence. But like I said, that's probably just me being picky on your word choice.
Choose to
Um,
believe is something that it's I did walk that back a little bit, and it is not a choice, because we do know that belief is not a choice. I did not choose to be an atheist. I saw what was going around me, and yeah, if you a choice would be whether or not you want to hold on to or not hold on to, if you want to advertise whether or not you're an atheist to your family, to your friends, or whatever, that would be something that a choice. What you believe in is not a choice. It's something that you discover. Cindy, what have you got?
Yeah, beyond religion and politics, the article focuses on the man's shift from hate to love, and they take it a little bit in a poetic sense. But um, I know this is not really the kind of speech that reaches far right people usually, especially in the current climate in India or in the US or even in France. But I'd like to talk about this specific aspect for a moment, because people don't realize very often when they're drawn into a spiral of hate. It always comes slowly, bit by bit, idea by idea, and almost always from external sources. But hate, it slowly eats you physically, mentally. It drains your energy, it makes you sick, takes you away any happiness you could have. Love is the opposite. It's strength, it's joy, it's happiness. You could say that love is life and hate is death. uh, I talked a few times on different channels about how rational thinking is the combination of emotion management, knowledge, and critical thinking, and that we need to teach all three starting uh, kindergarten. And this is one of the reasons why, because if you understand how emotions can be manipulated and uh, how they drive you, then you can um, take it into account when you think and when you um, elaborate thoughts, and they um, incite your actions. So yeah, those three aspects: emotional management, knowledge, and critical thinking, they're all necessary to think more rationally, and including emotion management, like I said here. August,
yeah.
you wanted to say something?
Yeah, thanks, Cindy. And yeah, I think those are some great points you brought up. I want to mention that I can just see what will happen if the theists or deist people, catch on to this and they're like, oh, well, see, look, he just lost his sister in a fatal accident, and then his whole world just changed, and now he's an atheist. And it's like Cindy was saying, it's really gradual, but also it's not so much of, and this is also partially why I started questioning when I was a young teen. It was more of a bad things are happening, evil things are happening, if you choose to use that word in the colloquial sense. Such horrific and abhorrent things are happening in this world, but if you're someone like me, you were told that there's this all-loving, all-knowing, all-powerful God who wants to have a relationship with you. And then I'm sitting here like, well, why does all the bad happen in the world? It's otherwise, commonly known as the problem of evil. And that was something that I was like, hey, wait, that doesn't really make sense. And people's answer of, well, it's free will, it's we live in a fallen world. That just didn't make sense to me anymore. And so, yeah, sure, it might be tragedies that cause us to think, hey, wait, this world sucks in a lot of ways, but a lot of us don't end there. That is our beginning of the journey, and it we aren't mad at God. It's just that you can't believe that a God is all loving and then see all the evil. I mean, you can, but in my head, it doesn't make logical sense. And the other thing I want to mention that's super duper important, I think, is the fact that this is not necessarily atheism, but humanism. And that's what's being pushed here. And I don't give a shit if you are atheist, theist, deist, uh, if you have multiple gods, whatever. What I care about is that you treat people well and that you care for your fellow man and that you do unto others what you would want done onto you. And otherwise, I don't give a shit. If you treat people well, humanism is so much more important. I don't care if you're atheist or theist or anything else. What I care about is how you treat others. And I think you can get to that point however you wish. Maybe your reasonings aren't good, but at least for now, that's good enough for me. I want people to be treated nicely. And so, Jason, what do you want to add?
I would say that is very well said. And yeah, as long as you aren't a jerk about it and all that, then yeah, go ahead and believe really what you want to believe. Um, I also want to say that nothing in this world hates quite like theist love. Okay, it really doesn't. One other thing I wanted to mention that he said is that you know if you need God, then God exists, and if you don't need, he doesn't exist. I get what he's trying to say there, but I think it's really weird. It's because if you need a fictional character, that fictional character is with you. No, not quite. I did not lose my religion based upon what you did, August. Seeing the world as I didn't have the problem of evil. I started losing my religion considerably early, right around the discovery of Santa Claus, and I just applied that same logic to every other mythical thing. So it in that regard, it doesn't matter. My path was different than yours, was different than Cindy's, was different than our humanist friend over here. The point is that we all got to where we're going. But we are getting very close to the end. So Cindy and August, we're gonna do some quick wrap ups, starting with Cindy.
Yeah, I wanted to echo what August said about the golden rule. And when I debate theists, sometimes one question I like to ask them is, uh, what criteria do you use to judge the value of a person?
Mm,
And the answer to that question for me is how you treat others. There's
absolutely.
no other criteria. I don't care about anything else. The only judgment I bear upon someone is how they treat others, and that will define how I will judge you. So yeah, it's the basics of humanism.
Yeah, for
Okay,
sure.
excellent. And August?
Well, I do want to kind of tie in something I said earlier, and I do kind of want to make it clear what I was trying to get across there. I watch the Atheist Experience and Talk Heathen pretty much every week when I can get on, and so many people call in saying that morality is objective, and I think humanism kind of relies on the fact that I don't know. I think you can make certain objective moral considerations possibly, but I think a lot of it can be subjective to some point. And so, what I was trying to say earlier is that those people who specifically believe that morality is objective, that's who I was talking to, those people. And if you don't believe that, then I was not referring to you earlier in the other segment. But to end this part with my thoughts is just, yeah. Be a humanist, do right by others and take care of each other. And yeah, I think religion pushes a lot of this us versus them and very individualistic culture in terms of, well, this is my in group and you guys are others. And so I think that can get into really really tricky territory. And it sounds like this individual with in terms of Hindus versus Muslims, it was that kind of us versus them thinking that doesn't really uh it doesn't really tie in with humanism very much. So I think the fact that he could disconnect from the us versus them is very important, and I think others should think about that as well.
Well said. Well said. And I personally think that, you know, there are people who have problems with morality being subjective. I don't. I don't. I think morality can and probably should be subjective because it's something that needs to change with time. What was
Absolutely.
okay 10 years ago, what was okay 20 years ago, which was, isn't okay today. I would also argue it probably wasn't okay back then, but you know what? We're all just learning. We're constantly learning. We're constantly trying to get this thing right. We constantly mess up. As long as we try to do better tomorrow, then yeah, we can have a subjective morality. And I get it. This is a pretty scary time. And for the rest of my panel, it's even worse in a lot of cases. Um, Cindy, you were talking about how hate just drains you, and yes, it can win a few rounds, and it might feel like it's going to win the overall war if you want to use that kind of language. But love and understanding does win out eventually. Good does win out. We've seen nationalism, wither, not necessarily die. It will go away. They'll fester somewhere else and probably come out again. But as long as we keep pushing it back against it, then what looks like scary and what looks like it sucks can get better overall. Before we started doing this show, I was checking the news, and it looks like our Congress, our Senate wants to codify gay marriage. I don't know if it's overall going to happen, but that's amazing. And I really wish we could have covered it. We'll probably cover that next week. So again, subscribe. It sucks, and it's going to get better because it has to.